chance to meet. I'm Eric Meredith, father of the bride. And I've just got a few things I'd like to say to everyone here. First of all, on behalf of Ken and Becky, Sarah and I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. We realize that many of you have had to take some time off work. Some of you have had to travel. All of you have been extremely generous. And we would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to say thank you. Thank you very much. Secondly, I'd like to extend, on behalf of Sarah, a special thank you to Becky and to Ken for the wonderful job they did with Michelle's bridal shower. Now, I personally was unable to attend.
But you were invited.
But I hear it was a wonderful affair, and last night's rehearsal dinner was no less. And so to Ken and Becky, thank you very much. We appreciate it. A day like today cannot happen without a tremendous amount of work, preparation, attention to detail. And so to my two favorite ladies, Michelle, her mother Sarah, from all of us, thank you so much for today.
Thank you for the roses, dear.
That leaves me, Jimmy. Fathers aren't given a whole lot to do on the wedding day, and it's probably just as well. I don't think we could handle the strain. We have really one job to do the whole day, and that is to walk our daughters down the aisle, which is to say, keep them from skipping or running down the aisle. The walk is not particularly difficult. The problem is what we see. Now, I've been thinking about this moment for over a year, walking Michelle down the aisle. And what I see can be best summarized by a scene in the movie Father of the Bride with Steve Martin. There's a wonderful scene where his 20-something daughter comes home and announces she's engaged. And the three of them, the mother, the dad, and the daughter, are sitting at the dining room table, and the daughter is talking in an animated fashion about her husband-to-be, and he's handsome, and he's educated, and he treats her well, and he's brilliant, yada, yada, yada. And the camera cuts between the daughter and the mom, and the daughter and the dad, the daughter. And the last time the camera cuts from the dad to the daughter, you see what he sees. Not the beautiful 20-something successful young woman, but a 6-year-old girl, who, by the way, is prattling on and on about her fiancé. I have a vision of Michelle that I carry with me. It's just what I think of her. And there's a picture on the poster board over there that really represents it. She's riding her bicycle. She's about 6 years old. It's one of my favorite pictures. I carry it with me everywhere I go. Michelle up to the high school parking lot to teach her how to ride the bike. And one of us would run along beside the bike while the other one had the camera. And eventually we'd get tired and switch roles. Back and forth, back and forth. Well, eventually it became my turn once again to run with Michelle while Sarah held the camera. And I had noticed that every time Michelle got the requisite speed and we let go of the handlebar, she'd stop the bike and get off. So this time, instead of grabbing the handlebar, I reached behind and grabbed the bicycle seat. Well, Michelle's pretty sharp. Daddy, what are you doing? I said, Michelle, you just pedal. She looks me in the eye and she says, Daddy, do not let go. And I said, Michelle, you pedal. She says, Daddy, do not. I said, Michelle, in my best Alec Baldwin voice, you pedal. And I gave the bike a little push and off we went. Now most kids, when they're learning how to ride a bike, look at their feet. Not Michelle. Her feet are going real well. She's got her hands on the handlebar, but she's riding the bike like this. The whole time saying, do not, Daddy, do not. And I finally said, Michelle, your mom's trying to take your picture. Look at your mom. And she turns around, and at that point, she's got enough speed. Her eyes are focused ahead. I open my hand, slide back a little bit. She's going, and Sarah says, Michelle, you're doing it. Click. That's the picture that you see. What you do not see is what happened in the next moment when Michelle realized I'm not there. She got off the bike. Did you notice I didn't say she stopped the bike and got off? The bike sailed into the parking lot. Michelle turns around, walks up to Sarah and I, and she is not happy. The fact that she has just ridden a bike for the first time has not yet registered in her. She walks up to the two of us, her hands on her hips, and she says, apparently, you have forgot the meaning of the word not. Dads aren't given a lot to do on the wedding day, and it's probably just as well. The word not is an interesting word, given that it's spelled a variety of ways, given the context in which it can be used. It has a variety of meanings. For instance, the word not, in the context of you're not getting married, has apparently no meaning whatsoever. Married life can be filled with nots. There's not enough time. There's not enough room. There's not enough money. There's not enough sleep because I'm tied up in knots. Think about that one. Tied up in knots. How much of our lives are centered around that word. Today, we celebrate the tying of a knot. And I'd like to demonstrate the tying of a knot and its symbolism in marriage, but I'm going to need two helpers, and I've already chosen them. If Michelle and Kenny would come down and join me here. Watch this. Mrs. Deemer over here. Mr. Deemer over here, please. Facing your throng here. No, facing over there. Sorry. I'm sure you all know what this is.
Deck of cards.
Deck of cards. No, that's not correct. It's actually a piece of rope. But I couldn't resist using the whole card thing. Kenny, would you take a look at the rope? Just tug on it. Just make sure that it's just a piece of rope. Just a piece of rope. Very, very, very good. This rope we will use to symbolize their marriage, their now newfound oneness. But to be sure, Kenny and Michelle did not start the day as one. They started the day off as two and became one when they tied the knot. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the rope so that I have two. Michelle, may I borrow your wedding cake knife? Never mind. Never mind. I got your mom's. I'm going to take the rope, and it doesn't really matter if you find the exact center or not. That's not the important part. The important part is that you've got a good, clean cut completely into the middle. So that what you end up with, so that you end up with, as we started the day, two that become one when we tie the knot. So we end up with one piece of rope representing Michelle, shorter one, and a normal-sized piece representing Kenny. What I'd like you to do, Kenny, is open up your hand, and I want you to hold the rope, but I want the little end up to hang out the side there. Down just a little bit. Hold tight, Kenny. Remember Michelle's words, do not let go. Michelle, I'd like you to do the same thing. Hold this end here very, very tight. Hold it very tight. So I've got a piece from Michelle. I've got a piece from Kenny. Now I'd like you two to move apart a little bit. Pull the rope taut, but don't make it a tug of war. That's later in the marriage. Somebody once said, hold tight. Somebody once said that marriage is a 50-50 proposition. And as long as you're putting in your 60%, everything will work out. But here's the reality. Sometimes in marriage, you think you're putting in your 60%, but you feel you're getting, hold tight, the short end of the rope. Other times, truth be told, you're getting the long end. But the reality is this. Over time, when you think about it, it's just an illusion. You get what you give. Fathers aren't given a lot to do on the wedding day, and it's probably just as well. We only have one job, and we can barely manage that. You see, when you're walking down the aisle, it's easy. Because I've walked with my little girl 100 times. It's at the end of the aisle, when you look over, and she's a beautiful young adult. And for the first time, she looks at you and she says, Daddy, it's time to let go. No knot. No knots this time. I hate that word. Except when it's not there. So I have 3 wishes for Mr. and Mrs. Kenny Deamer. In a world that is filled with troubling knots, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, I can't sleep because I'm tied up in knots. My first wish is that all your troubling knots will slip away. All the knots you tie, stay tied. May your marriage be long and make you smile. Congratulations.